All right, check it out. Today, the coolest thing happened. I was listening to K-Wave, KWVE, HD1, San Clemente. And I got to talk on Pastor's Perspective with Pastor Greg Laurie from Harvest in Riverside, California. They also have a church in Orange County. I don't know where specifically. But I got to ask him about Hillsong. And I'm so thankful for Pastor Laurie's answer. And I totally agree with him. And it was good to hear from a first-hand perspective, just about Hillsong, because I really love some of their songs, a lot of their songs actually, and I was feeling pretty convicted and confused about things John MacArthur says, and just scripture and what God thinks, and I agree with Greg Laurie on this. So here you go, just watch it. It's awesome. Also, I wanted to say, I feel like God really did this on purpose because of the way Greg Laurie approached the question. He says, it's so unusual, it's interesting. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to answer my phone call. Because there were 7 other people on the line, and they only answered 3 phone calls today on Pastor's Perspective. So it was really awesome. Here you go. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Amen. Hey, Donnie, I was thinking, I'm looking at these questions, and this one is so unusual. I want to take it. It's Chad from Riverside.
Okay, let's take Chad from Riverside. Okay, stay with us, Kathy. You can chime in and help us answer this. And Chad from Riverside, thank you for waiting. You're on Pastor's Perspective on Wild Wednesday with Greg and Kathy Laurie. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot of John MacArthur's work, and this thing keeps coming up about the prosperity gospel and Jesus culture in these churches. And so I'm just wondering if you guys think that born-again Christians should sing Hillsong United songs in our churches because they lean towards prosperity gospel type of things. So,
okay, Greg?
That's an interesting question. John is a friend, and I love him and I respect him, but I don't agree with him on all of his conclusions. And I think that there's a lot of strong believers that are out there, and I may have theological disagreements with them, but I'm not prepared to dismiss them as non-believers. I think I have to be discerning. I think I have to be careful. I think a lot of great music has come out of the Hillsong movement. I've met some wonderful people that we've worked with when we've been down under in Australia and New Zealand that are from Hillsong and have really supported and cooperated with us in bringing the gospel. And I think, we want to be discerning, but let's be careful to not completely divide over things that we don't need to necessarily divide over. Certainly, I'm not a believer in or an advocate of prosperity theology, but I think you have to look at these things very carefully. And sometimes I find that certain people, I'm not necessarily including John in this, it's just if there's even any kind of a connection down the road, if you've had a conversation with someone that holds to a view a little different than yours, now it's like guilt by association and you're being tainted. And I think sometimes we start majoring on minors. And the church is a big family. We have some theological differences. But I think that would be an extreme view to say we're not going to sing Hillsong songs.
Yeah.
We sing them in our church.
Yeah. Kathy?
I love the song Darlene Jack wrote called Shout to the Lord. Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about that song that would that John MacArthur would even object to, Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of his name. It's a song of praise. It echoes the psalmist's heart. With any song, again, you would, as with any book, you would check it with the sound teaching of Scripture. If there's something in there that is not reflective of that. And, that's my opinion.
Deal with it song by song,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Don?
I lived in Australia 5 years, and Jeff Bullock, one of the singers, Hillsong, we'd ministered together, and this guy loved the Lord, and he sang from the heart. In fact, when I taught, he said, I wish I could hear this forever and ever. It was great. So, there are differences of opinion we have, granted there, but the people I've met anyway love Jesus, and that's the bottom line, because someday all our theology may be made straight.
That's right.
And we should show a little bit of grace there, Chad. And again, there's some very anointed songs like Kathy mentioned. Shout to the Lord I think that's as good as any song's ever been written, any hymn ever. And so, I really think we ought to understand we don't agree with everything on them, with all due respect, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we work with every people that only agreed with us on everything, we'd be speaking by ourselves the rest of our lives, wouldn't we, Greg?
That's right. You know, and when we do our Harvest Crusades, I cross a lot of denominational lines, and I work with a lot of different Christians from a lot of different backgrounds. And I don't always agree with them on every fine theological point. But on the main points, we do agree on the authority of Scripture, on the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, on the need for people to turn from their sin and believe in Him, on heaven and hell and judgment and these main issues. And I think I'm reminded of a quote by an old country preacher named Vance Havner, and he said, if we're too busy using our sickles on each other, we're going to miss the harvest. And I think sometimes people are so busy looking at what our differences are that we're missing the bigger picture of the need to bring the gospel to our generation and the need to set aside smaller differences for what we hold in common to advance the cause of Christ. Because I'll tell you what, we're living in a culture that's becoming increasingly hostile, and we stand on major issues together. And so I say, let's keep that in mind as we seek to let our light shine in this world we're living in.
Okay, Greg, we got about